Have you ever seen a movie that makes you want to rip your shirt off, cover yourself in mud, howl at the moon, and then pillage an entire village of peasants? If not, well, I would seriously recommend watching The Northman. And honestly, if that isn't good enough reason for you to watch the movie, then I don't know what else to tell you. The review can end here for all I care, but for the sake of content, let me get into it a little bit more. This movie completely immerses you into the mythology and era of Vikings, but remains a very small personal revenge story. The brutality and unforgiving hardship of this period in time is at full display, but the violence and intensity is very strategically used. It's not a gigantic action epic, so don't expect hordes of armies crashing into one another. But when the violence does happen, it is relentless and truly shows why it was necessary to be strong both physically and mentally during these times. I'm going to try to do my best to not spoil it yet because I think that you should experience it for yourself, but I do have a few things that I want to talk about that felt very meaningful to me, so I guess if you don't want to know anything at all, check it out for yourself and come back to this video later. A few things I want to describe all take place within the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then after that you can probably piece together the plot on your own, so if you don't want to know that, you can leave now, but I'm going to be talking probably about the first 20 minutes here. However, this is one of those films that is about much more than just the story and showcases a lot of symbolism of life and legacy, and it's meant to give you more of an emotional reaction than a bunch of plot twists, though there are a few. See, in the opening of the film, our main character, Amleth, is a child, and he is taken by his father, who is played wonderfully by Ethan Hawke, to a cave in order to perform a ritual which you can kind of take as a boy becoming a man. It's one of those things that I resonate with and find endearing because in our modern times, we don't have anything like this. We don't have that big ceremony event that is meant to give us a test and push us into adulthood. We're just kind of thrown out on our own. Now, I don't know if what is shown in the movie was a real Viking ritual, but when it happens in the movie, begins to get very trippy and hallucinogenic, perhaps more reminiscent of the director's other films. But it puts the emphasis on the power of lineage and bloodlines, how important it was to continue the cycle of life, and how we should honor and respect those that have survived hundreds of thousands of years fighting and clawing, battling and going through hell to get to a point where we could exist now. Amleth sheds a tear that becomes solid, and it is spoken that this is the last tear he should shed as a boy. Something along those lines anyway. And I may be wrong, but I took this as the understanding that in becoming a man, he will need to be strong, not for himself, but for the ones that he will lead and for his own eventual children. But of course, this is put on hold for quite some time. As you've seen from the trailers of the movie, Amleth's father is killed by his uncle, and Amleth runs away for many years. And now that I'm thinking about it, this film is kind of like an R-rated Lion King. But instead of being peaceful, saying Hakuna Matata and living a life of pleasure and indulgence, Amleth instead becomes a raiding Viking, pillaging the land and killing many men. I mean, we all got our paths to take, and that's kind of what this movie is about. But soon he remembers his mission to avenge his father, save his mother, and kill his uncle. And he infiltrates his uncle's settlement as a slave, trying to find the right time to strike. So this is what I mean about this movie being smaller scale. The majority of the movie takes place in this one location, and there are multiple things happening with Amleth that could be considered in his own head, or potentially something supernatural that's alongside him. See, one of the brilliant things about this movie is depending on how you want to watch it, it could work being 100% realistic, but also if you want to think that there is a supernatural element here or that the gods are intervening, you would also be correct. Whether it comes from the hallucinations of Valhalla, seeing into his own future, or a sword that won't unsheath unless under the moonlight, there is enough here that you could conceive that more is going on, or it's just life and causality at play. But in this small village, there is also such a realistic, lived-in feel to it where the movie didn't feel like it was trying to be a movie, if that makes sense. The shots looked amazing, but they were 90% outdoors in real sunlight, nighttime was lit by torches, and when the movie decided to get intense or go into its trippy sequences, The camera, a lot of the times, had the character dead center in the frame with these looks of overwhelming emotion and pain. Every performance in the film is on point. Alexander Skarsgård not only got jacked for the role, but also allowed himself to enter deep into this primal state of mind and within his physicality. I'm talking the deadpan look of a man who's murdered hundreds. Sometimes he's crawling on all fours like a wolf, sometimes howling at the moon, fighting like a savage. All of that is there. Anya Taylor-Joy, who is my second top celeb crush of all time, recalls a little bit of herself from Eggers' other movie, The Witch, but also makes you feel deeply sorrowful for her. And then you have Nicole Kidman, who, okay, she doesn't have a large role, but she has one scene in particular that is so fucked up and realistic and heartbreaking, and she just nails it. So if you were on the fence about this film, I do highly recommend it. It's probably my favorite film of the year so far, and I'll definitely be scooping up the Blu-ray when it comes out. I do want to talk about the ending of the film a little bit though, so this will be spoiler talk, so I'm gonna give you one last warning. The rest of the video will be spoilers. Okay, so first of all, that Nicole Kidman scene. Ameth arrives to save his mother, and she admits to him that she never loved his actual father, that she laughed when he died, and that if he were to kill his uncle now, maybe she'd even go with him. And this scene is so fucked up, but also very sad in a realistic way, because you have to think about back then, a lot of women, and obviously and especially the slaves, they had to adjust to whoever was the dominant in power for their own survival. Men would come in, they would kill the other men, and they would take the women, so it was either adapt or die. But in this specific situation, it kind of paints Ameth's father as just as bad, if not worse, than his uncle. And perhaps maybe his uncle wasn't actually all that bad. That his father impregnated a slave and then had to make her queen to save face. But this also shines the reality on his mother not needing or wanting to be saved from his uncle and considering him a cursed child and wanted him to be killed alongside of his father. And she just accepted this as the reality. She wanted it. And even more than that, it brings into question everything Ameth is doing. And when Ameth decides to leave Olga, knowing that she is now pregnant with his children, the importance of lineage and the importance of fatherhood and the ritual of becoming a boy to a man, that they'll never get to experience because instead he chose to fight his uncle in the final battle of the film. Ameth pays the ultimate price for this, and sure, he gets his vengeance, but just as he had to grow up without a father, now so will they. It's the cycle just repeating itself. And in his final vision of being taken to Valhalla, well, once again, we can view this as reality. He died in battle, therefore he's going to Valhalla, or this is just the final hallucination he's had before fading to black and nothingness. But bring it back right to the passage ritual, he does shed his first tear since that moment in this scene. Perhaps after holding on to his rage for so long, here in this final moment, he is allowed to be weak once more as he accepts his death. And it just keeps this ambiguity to it where Ameth is our main character and we feel so emotional for him, but he also does all of these horrific things, including when he does kill his mother, he also winds up killing his half-brother who is just a small child. I think it was really at that moment where he kind of submitted to vengeance, because after that, where do you go from there? You know, as someone deciding he wasn't going to kill women and children, now he's sort of past the point of no return, which probably helped him sway into leaving Olga and not being with her, instead just going for his final vengeance, not caring if he comes back or not. And look, I'm sure the more that I think about this film, the more I will get out of it, the more I'll understand. I've only seen it once, and these opinions are, well, obviously just my opinions. I don't know what the filmmaker was going after for sure, but I do know this was one hell of a film-going experience, and I truly believe that you have to see this on the big screen. So if you're looking for a new movie to go out and see, I highly recommend watching The Northman. Other than that, guys, thank you a lot for watching this video review. I really do appreciate it. Please give the video a like and a comment to help it in the algorithm. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see other reviews of movies, manga, anime, and whatever else I just plan to upload. Anyways, thank you all for your continued support over the years, and I appreciate you all. I'll talk to you next time.